The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. The lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. One must therefore be a fox to recognize traps, and a lion to frighten wolves. Women are the most charitable creatures, and the most troublesome. He who shuns women passes up the trouble, but also the benefits. He who puts up with them gains the benefits, but also the trouble. As the saying goes, there's no honey without bees. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. I desire to go to hell and not to heaven. In the former I shall enjoy the company of popes, kings and princes, while in the latter are only beggars, monks and apostles. A government which does not trust its citizens to be armed is not itself to be trusted. Entrepreneurs are simply those who understand that there is little difference between obstacle and opportunity, and are able to turn both to their advantage. Men are so stupid and concerned with their present needs, they will always let themselves be deceived. It is just as difficult and dangerous to try to free a people that wants to remain servile as it is to enslave a people that wants to remain free. A sign of intelligence is an awareness of one's own ignorance. It should be borne in mind that there is nothing more difficult to arrange, more doubtful of success, and more dangerous to carry through than initiating changes. The innovator makes enemies of all those who prospered under the old order, and only lukewarm support is forthcoming from those who would prosper under the new. Their support is lukewarm, partly because men are generally incredulous, never really trusting new things unless they have tested them by experience. Any man who tries to be good all the time is bound to come to ruin among the great number who are not good. One of the great secrets of the day is to know how to take possession of popular prejudices and passions in such a way as to introduce a confusion of principles, which makes impossible all understanding between those who speak the same language and have the same interests. Power is the pivot on which everything hinges. He who has the power is always right, the weaker is always wrong. You know better than I that in a republic talent is always suspect. A man attains an elevated position only when his mediocrity prevents him from being a threat to others. And for this reason a democracy is never governed by the most competent, but rather by those whose insignificance will not jeopardize anyone else's self-esteem. It is better to act and repent than not to act and regret. Politics have no relation to morals. The more sand has escaped from the hourglass of our life, the clearer we should see through it. And what physicians say about disease is applicable here, that at the beginning a disease is easy to cure, but difficult to diagnose. But as time passes, not having been recognized or treated at the outset, it becomes easy to diagnose but difficult to cure. The same thing occurs in affairs of state. For by recognizing from afar the diseases that are spreading in the state, which is a gift given only to the prudent ruler, they can be cured quickly. But when Not having been recognized, they are not recognized and are left to grow to the extent that everyone recognizes them. There is no longer any cure. The wise man does at once what the fool does finally. If you only notice human proceedings, you may observe that all who attain great power and riches make use of either force or fraud, and what they have acquired either by deceit or violence, in order to conceal the disgraceful methods of attainment. They endeavor to sanctify with the false title of honest gains. Whoever wishes to foresee the future must consult the past, for human events ever resemble those of preceding times. This arises from the fact that they are produced by men who ever have been, and ever shall be, animated by the same passions, and thus they necessarily have the same results. Make no small plans, for they have no power to stir the soul. Always assume incompetence before looking for conspiracy. Men are driven by two principal impulses, either by love or by fear. The ends justifies the means. Men are of three different capacities. One understands intuitively, another understands so far as it is explained, and a third understands neither of himself nor by explanation. The first is excellent, the second commendable, and the third altogether useless. Men in general judge more from appearances than from reality. All men have eyes, but few have the gift of penetration. Gold will not always get you good soldiers, but good soldiers can get you gold. If an injury has to be done to a man, it should be so severe that his vengeance need not be feared. There is nothing more important than appearing to be religious. Make mistakes of ambition and not mistakes of sloth. Develop the strength to do bold things, not to suffer. A battle that you win cancels all your mistakes. There is nothing as likely to succeed as what the enemy believes you cannot attempt. Never was anything great achieved without danger. It is double pleasure to deceive the deceiver. A prince must learn from the fox and the lion. One must be a fox in order to recognize traps, and a lion to frighten off wolves. Those who act simply as lions are stupid. So it follows that a prudent ruler cannot, and must not, honor his word when it places him at a disadvantage, and when the reasons for which he made his promise no longer exist. The state is not an organism capable of bringing either moral or material improvements to the populace, but merely a vehicle of power for the men and party in power. Wars begin when you will, but they do not end when you please. It is better to be loved rather than feared, or feared rather than loved. It might perhaps be answered that we should wish to be both. But since love and fear can hardly exist together, if we must choose between them, it is far safer to be feared than loved. It is better to be adventurous than cautious, because fortune is a woman. All courses of action are risky, so prudence is not in avoiding danger, it's impossible, but calculating risk and acting decisively. Make mistakes of ambition and not mistakes of sloth. Develop the strength to do bold things, not the strength to suffer. Whosoever desires constant success must change his conduct with the times. He who wishes to be obeyed must know how to command. One who deceives will always find those who allow themselves to be deceived. The unarmed man is not just defenseless, he is also contemptible. Before all else, be armed. Men are so simple of mind and so much dominated by their immediate needs that a deceitful man will always find plenty who are ready to be deceived. For the great majority of mankind are satisfied with appearances, as though they were realities, and are often more influenced by the things that seem than by those that are. How perilous it is to free a people who prefer slavery. No enterprise is more likely to succeed than one concealed from the enemy until it is ripe for execution. Where the willingness is great, the difficulties cannot be great. One must be a fox to recognize traps, and a lion to frighten wolves. There is no other way to guard yourself against flattery than by making men understand that telling you the truth will not offend you. The wise man should always follow the roads that have been trodden by the great, and imitate those who have most excelled, so that if he cannot reach their perfection, he may at least acquire something of its savor. I hold it to be a proof of great prudence for men to abstain from threats and insulting words toward anyone, for neither diminishes the strength of the enemy. How we live is so different from how we ought to live, that he who studies what ought to be done, rather than what is done, will learn the way to his downfall, rather than to his preservation. Never do an enemy a small injury. I'm not interested in preserving the status quo. I want to overthrow it. There is no surer sign of decay in a country than to see the rights of religion held in contempt. Rome remained free for 400 years, and Sparta 800. Although their citizens were armed all that time, but many other states that have been disarmed have lost their liberties in less than 40 years. You must know, then, that there are two methods of fighting, the one by law, the other by force. The first method is that of men, the second of beasts. But as the first method is often insufficient, one must have recourse to the second. One should never fall in the belief that you can find someone to pick you up. Hatred is gained as much by good works as by evil. There is no avoiding war. It can only be postponed to the advantage of others. Ability and perseverance are the weapons of weakness. It is not titles that honor men, but men that honor titles. People should either be caressed or crushed. If you do them minor damage, they will get their revenge. But if you cripple them, there is nothing they can do. If you need to injure someone, do it in such a way that you do not have to fear their vengeance. For a long time I have not said what I believed, nor do I ever believe what I say. And if indeed sometimes I do happen to tell the truth, I hide it among so many lies that it is hard to find. He who, blinded by ambition, raises himself to a position whence he cannot mount higher, must thereafter fall with the greatest loss.